Without further ado, we're going to have Al Cohen make the introduction to our guest speaker. Please go ahead, Al.
Thank you, Steve. We're honored tonight to have John Ramsey, a veteran of Hartford Radio, here tonight. Broadcasting is a very fascinating game, and I was fortunate to work in broadcasting. And when I got my first job in broadcasting, I was on the night shift tending a transmitter at 983 Main Street on top of the American Industrial Building in downtown Hartford. And when I got my first paycheck, I felt awful guilty for having fun all week long. Anyway, John is Chief Technical Officer at WCCC. He's General Manager of WWUH. He's Chairman of the Society of Broadcast Engineers Local Chapter. He's also President of Ramsey Communication Service, a broadcast consulting firm, and he's also a historian. And I would recommend to you that you look at two websites that he runs, HartfordRadioHistory.com and ColdWarConnecticut.com. The radio history site is fascinating, and more fascinating even is the Cold War website. I looked at it tonight for the first time, and I thought, boy, I should have been looking at this long ago. But anyway, we're honored to have John Ramsey with us, and let us welcome John.
Thank you, Al, and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. It's great to see the turnout.
Too much.
I am a ham. I'm W1JNR. I've been one since 1978. For those of you that aren't hams, I highly recommend it. It's a great hobby, both to meet people and get to know more about broadcasting and get to know about the world even. So definitely stick around after the meeting and talk to some of the folks from the Newington Amateur Radio League. You can find out more about that. Tonight I'm going to spend maybe 30 minutes on both some slideshow pictures of history, radio history in Hartford, and also I've got some audio air checks. Most of this, because I'm talking to hams, it's more technically inclined. The pictures will be more towers, transmitters, and transmitter sites, and some studio stuff than DJs and record hops and stuff like that. So those of you that aren't technically inclined, bear with us. I think you'll find it enjoyable anyways. Broadcasting goes back in this country, close to 100 years. And before I say anything else, let me think of it. I'm publishing a book next spring on Hartford Radio. It's one of those Images of America series like you've seen in the bookstore. They've got them on Newington, they've got them on trolleys of Hartford, they've got them on whatever, airports. I've got a clipboard here we can pass around town if you want to put that around. If you're interested in finding out more about the book when it comes out, no obligation, just put down your name and your email address there. And that's the only sales pitch I'm going to do. I'm an amateur historian. Thank you for the great introduction, Al. HartfordRadioHistory.com. I started about 2 years ago because I realized I've been working in broadcasting business for almost 40 years. And I'd worked with some really, some people that had some huge, wonderful experiences, but I never asked them about it. And one of the guys who was one of my mentors, Harold Dorshug, who was the Director of Engineering at WTIC for many, many years, I worked side by side with him on many different projects, not at TIC, but with some of the other projects. And didn't realize until 5 or 6 years after he passed away, while I was doing some research for a class I was teaching at the University of Hartford, we all know about one of the most historic radio broadcasts of the War of the Worlds. H.G. Wells, Orson Welles, Mercury Theater of the Air, that was CBS back then in the 30s. We've all seen the pictures of Orson Welles in the studio with his hand up to his ear so he could hear himself in front of the microphone. There's another famous picture from the studio looking into the control room. Back then, control rooms had huge windows. And there's an engineer with a straight tie with a phone, and the legend had always been engineer takes calls from disgruntled listeners, or distracted or panicked listeners. I finally saw one online that said engineer Harold Dorshug takes calls from. I worked next to, on and off, for 10 years or more, a guy who was there, and I never once asked him, hey, what it was like when you got your radio 30, 40 years ago back then. So I said, if I don't start asking people now and start collecting stuff, maybe nobody's going to do it. So without further ado, I decided to put down, and I'm not a webmaster, I don't know much about the web, but I decided to start putting some stuff down. So you can go to that website anytime you want and take a look at stuff. There's over 1,900 pictures there, of which this is just a small sample. Let's start out with, of course, when we think radio, ham radio, the premier station in the country, if not in the state, is what? W1AW, of course. But we also think about broadcasting, and of course is WTIC, And if you're thinking about Hartford and WTIC, you've got to think about Bob Steele, legendary broadcaster on the air for 60 years in the same station. That's unheard of. And I've got a little audio clip here of Bob for those of you that haven't heard him.
And now, friends, we have a time check. And would you just fill in your own time, please? Tell you what we'll do right here. Let's pause for an antenna switch. This will be a first incidental.
I'm going to interrupt this. The antenna switch, the TIC is a directional station. You'll see pictures every morning and evening. They have to switch their antenna pattern. They have to go off the air for a few seconds to do it. TIC made history by being the only station to this day in the country that ever sold airtime or sold advertising time for when they weren't on the air. Because Bob Steele had the idea of having the antenna switch sponsored by a different business. So it's the only time stations off the air, they still get money for the switch. This doesn't talk about the sponsorship, but you get back to the antenna switch here.
Never before has an antenna switch been recorded. Would you stand by, please? Thank you. I have some great scores for you, games that have important bearing on the standings, and here are some of them. 76 to 59, 21 to 7, 6 to 3, 104 to 102 in overtime, and in a big one, 77 to 76. Now, we must remind you that these scores are presented solely for your entertainment, and any reuse of the scores without the express consent of the teams involved, especially the losers, is, of course, prohibited. And one more thing, remember to sit up straight, for goodness sake.
Bob Steele, you love him. He's been around for many, many years. So, moving along with the photographs here. This was a picture, one of the rare pictures of WTIC's AM tower on top of 28 Grove Street in Hartford. It was there from the early 20s until, it actually stayed until the 40s when they donated it to the police department, but they stopped using it in 1929. There were two self-supporting towers like that, and then a cage antenna between them, because back then AM broadcast stations used horizontal wires with a vertical feed. This is a better picture, or a different picture of it, right next to the Travelers Tower, of the two towers there. It's kind of neat. And it's like, what is this talking about? WTIC personalities signing off. Well, they were signing off their downtown Hartford facility with, I think, 5,000 watts, maybe only 1,000, and moving to Avon Mountain with 50,000 watts. They were the only station in the state to ever make the increase. So they're signing off there. And then here's homage to W1AW and ARRL. 1929, picture of the Avon transmitter site. And it's America's most modern broadcasting station, WTIC. There's that same, or the antenna that you'll see more of in a second. There's the building today, so we can go back and look at the artist conception in the lower left there. It's a more recent building. Beautiful lead-shielded, copper-shielded building, made to withstand just about anything. You can see one of the TIC AM towers in the background, and then the Channel 3 tower behind that. And then this is an extremely unique photograph of the two AM towers that were up at the tower. It was at the Avon Mountain. They had a string between them, a wire between them, cage antenna. And instead of having obstruction lights for aircraft, they had spotlights at the base of each tower pointing at the other one, which is kind of neat. But there aren't many photographs of that array. I'm going to move on to the audio again now. We're talking about TIC. This is an audio clip of Bob Steele's last day on his morning show in 1991. He stayed on doing Saturdays for quite a while after that, but he is reacting on this. He actually gets fearful. The newscaster, unbeknownst to Bob, Bob didn't know in advance, had just announced that Senator Lieberman had just brought a proclamation before Congress honoring Bob Steele's 60 years of service. So this is Bob reacting to the newscast right when he first goes back on.
Thank you, Bryant. And Senator Lieberman, if he runs again, I know I'm going to vote for now. Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful morning, and just like any other beautiful morning, I wish people wouldn't make so much of a fuss. We've got 7 or 8 photographers in here, cameramen, and they're all taking pictures of each other. But eventually, I suppose they'll get around to me, and I'm just flabbergasted here, really. Nonplussed, or whatever other expression I can make. I don't know what to say. I don't know how we're going to get through the program. I've got my commercials to do.
The people that were there said he was really beside himself, so he didn't expect that, so I apologize. The audio doesn't necessarily correspond with the video exactly. Again, this is the first time I've done this. So let's get back to the tower sites here. That's a picture of the towers, again, looking in from Deercliff Road. You can kind of see the T antenna behind there. So they signed off on 26 Grove Street in 1929. It came on with 50,000 watts, which was a huge amount of power. It is now, but it was a particularly huge amount of power then. Water-cooled transmitter tubes the size of a 10-year-old, big 4-foot tall, 5-foot tall tubes. That's a picture of their 50 kilowatt transmitter. That's only part of it. The entire basement of the building was made up of the modulation transformer and the power transformer and the substation outside. Beautiful, beautiful rig for its day.
John, what did the call letters stand for?
Travelers Insurance Company.
Right.
Yes, it's the only insurance company we know of that had their own radio station. This is the base of one of the two towers. I cleared out the brush around that last year with the help of my son. That's the base of one of those two towers in Avon, and there's the spotlight that was used to illuminate the opposite tower for planes. TIC was telling me that they had the spotlights on there to illuminate the tower just for people driving by, but if you've got to think about Deercliff Road in 1929, the road ended at TIC. I mean, that road was put in for the TIC. People weren't driving by. This wasn't like, some stations used to have call letters on their tower.
It was dirt then.
It was there for aviation, I think, more than anything else. That's an unusual picture from the top of there's two AM towers, 440-ish feet tall. That's looking from the east tower towards the west. I didn't bring my pointer with me, but I think I can figure this out. This is Fisher Meadow area here. This is the road that goes from Route 10 out to Avon Old Farm School, which would be up here somewhere. Am I making sense to everybody? And that beautiful road that goes to the fairgrounds, or the polo grounds, I think is this right here. But you look at how undeveloped. This is from the FM application in 1939 or 40 when they were trying to they were planning on putting the FM antenna on the AM tower, which they didn't do. They did something different. But it's a very unusual shot and of interest because it shows how rural the area was back then. This is one of their newer transmitters for them at that time, 1962-ish, their 50 kilowatt Westinghouse, which I actually saw in operation when I got into radio in '78. It was in standby service. And Dave, you worked on that transmitter?
Oh yeah, that was there. I started in the late '60s, so yeah.
So it's 60 feet long, about 10 feet deep. You could actually walk inside parts of it. It took 2 guys 30 minutes to tune up because the controls are so far apart. Are you dipping that? No, I'm peaking that. No, you dip that. No, you dip. Pretty big. But we saw that that got taken to the dump, unfortunately, back from I got one of the final tubes from it, which was huge. I put it in the front seat of my Volkswagen and strapped it in. I thought the car was going to fall over. I was going to make a lamp out of it, but ended up giving it to a friend of mine who's a tube collector. Huge, huge, very, very heavy. So.